we go. I think we are live, everyone. We'll see here.
Oh, live on Facebook. Look at that. That's
there
great.
We go. We figured it out. We figured out technology.
You figured it out. I had no part in that one.
We can do it. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to jump on into today's Lunch and Learn. I am Piper Harris. I am the coach and CEO of Poema Women's Success Coaching. So what I do is I empower women into heightened leadership, whether that's in their personal life or their professional life. And today we are joined by Christiana George. Say hello.
Hello.
So Christiana and I have just met through Atlanta, through the ICF, I believe, and have just kept in touch. And so Christiana, she is a coach, and she actually helps high achievers live mindfully, which we are digging into mindfulness and self-compassion today. She's a certified health and wellness coach through the Emory University. So she works with clients to break free from limiting beliefs and to create sustainable habits. So she is a champion for her clients to create a healthy lifestyle through deep work and action planning, mindset work, all of that. So welcome to Christiana and everybody else that is with us today. So just a quick little rundown. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, how does this work? So if you're joining us on Zoom today, well, it's going to be about an hour, maybe discussion. This is being recorded. We're also live streaming on Facebook. So glad everybody is watching. We'll do our best to answer your questions. Utilize the chat box. Utilize the chat box if you're on Zoom. That's on the very bottom. It's that little chat bubble. And if you have questions, raise your hand and one of us will answer that. And then hopefully we can toggle back and forth to Facebook. We'll see if we can do all of this. I'm not quite sure I'm that handy. So also stay to the end, everybody, stay to the end, because we do have a complimentary workbook that Christiana and I have put together for you. It's gorgeous. It's really great. And it's going to allow you to really do a deep dive. So is everybody ready to dig into mindfulness and self-compassion and how we can integrate this into our personal and professional lives? I am. Yeah. All right. So Christiana, I want you to kick this off. Tell me exactly, what is mindfulness? What is self-compassion?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that introduction, Piper. I am so delighted to be joining you today, and welcome everyone. So you've definitely heard the term mindfulness somewhere, whether it was on a magazine, in an article, at work, at home, and it's definitely becoming more mainstream, which I love, especially as a wellness coach. And I want people to understand the true authentic meaning of mindfulness, because what I've noticed is that people are using it for the term awareness. And awareness is a key critical component of mindfulness. It's being in the present, in the here and now, but there's this extra component to it that I want people to understand and put a focus on. And there's this non-judgmental component. So approaching the present with this complete awareness in a non-judgmental way. And that's mindfulness. It's being in the here and now. Okay.
Okay. So lack of judgment is the big thing, right? And presentness. I love that. I love that. So tell me a little bit more about the components of self-compassion. Can you share that with us?
Sure, absolutely. And so mindfulness is a great lead-in to self-compassion. You can't really have self-compassion without the qualities of mindfulness, which is being present. So the three qualities of self-compassion, and if you've dived into this term, there's a researcher and professor called Kristen Neff who really founded, you're familiar with it.
Yep.
And she's identified these three components, and one is mindfulness. So approaching the present with this openness, and kindness is the second one. And then this interconnection, which is the understanding of this is a common human experience that you are witnessing, whether it's a thought that comes into your mind, whether it's an experience or an emotion that arises.
Okay. Okay. Something that you brought up was the interconnectedness. And I love that you're talking in that kindness. All of us know we could use a little bit more kindness, of course, and being more present. So the interconnectedness, how would you say you have an individual that doesn't quite understand that term or the feeling of interconnectedness? What can you say to our viewers of like some shared experiences? Kind of play off on that a little bit, because I think that might be kind of a term for some people that is not so tangible. They don't really aren't sure how to hold on to that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the concept of interconnectedness is to recognize that you are not alone. And whatever you're experiencing, someone at some point in some way has experienced what you just experienced or what you're going through. Okay. So it's this deep understanding that you're not alone and that what you are experiencing is something that is human. It's this shared understanding that we are all in this together. And I think that is just so important, especially now. A lot of us are in this season together.
Right, exactly. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the same experience, but it's that same underlying feeling that is the interconnectedness, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And definitely, I know all of us watching right now, we are all in this together. And that's why we really wanted to bring this to everyone, is that we are, I think, even on a deeper level, I don't know if you felt this as well, Christiana, everybody watching, I'm feeling more connection to people, like a deeper connection to people right now, because I know they're suffering and they're, grappling with fears and anxieties and what ifs, and then all the other things of trying to manage work and family. And so there is a new connectedness taking place. It's funny, last night, I sat and giggled on Facebook for like an hour. It was one of those silly things, like your quarantine name is your high school mascot and the last thing you ate. And it's just silly. But what was so wonderful is all these people from the last 25, 30 years of my life were participating, and it was just joy. So our interconnectedness took us away from fear and anxiety and brought joy. And I loved it. I mean, I went to bed last night with a smile on my face. And so it was wonderful. It was wonderful. So when we're talking about mindfulness and self-compassion, tell me, why is it so important, not only right now, but in the future to come?
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's so many reasons, and I'm going to highlight three main, I believe, are the most important reasons of why this is so important. And like you mentioned, self-compassion recognizes that there is suffering. It's not this, I'm trying to push it away, I'm trying to avoid it, or I'm trying to sit in it and wallow in it. It's a matter of accepting what is, and then taking that next step to say, okay, what can I do now? And how can I show myself this kindness that I would show to a friend or a child or a loved one? And when we do operate in this mindset, which I do believe it's a mindset of self-compassion, because it is a state of being that you have to be in, and it's shifting your mind. And when we are in this, we are able to, on a holistic scale, improve our well-being. So like you said, it took you out of that anxiety and fear state and brought you in on a like psychological level. It does reduce anxiety and depression, which is it's very top of mind for a lot of people right now. Because when we are not in a state of mindfulness and we are in this fight or flight response, we have a tendency to look into the future and then think the future is this assumed reality that hasn't happened, but then that leads to anxiety. And so when we are able to show ourselves self-compassion and practice mindfulness, it also helps us reach our goals and makes our habits more sustainable. And instead of motivating yourself with this critical, condemning voice, you're motivating yourself with this care and concern of saying, okay, you know what? we are in this together. I am not alone, and this will pass. This will pass. And I think that that's just so important. So with just creating any new habits and making them sustainable, that self-compassionate voice actually brings you to the finish line and further than with that critical voice, which is I love to emphasize that. And ultimately, too, another reason why, like, taking it beyond just the present moment is when you are able to practice self-compassion. And we were talking about this earlier, how you've been conditioned for the uncertainty. You're conditioned for that. So when you practice self-compassion, you're more able to allow the waves of adversity to come and go without being swept up in them and carried away by them. So there's this ability to not only help yourself live in this more patient, calm state, but then that radiates off to other people, which is, I'm sure you've seen it with your family, with friends. When you are in that state, other people see, oh, that's possible. I don't have to sit in fear and sit in this worry and anxiety. So it's like a ripple effect.
So a question with that, like you said, I've been kind of conditioned, in life. A lot of people have learned self-compassion, the mindfulness, but how do you help a client that doesn't know how to get there? I know in your work and in my work, getting someone to be present and be mindful that's really difficult. So what would you say to someone that's in the midst of the fear and uncertainty right now? How would you help them get into that moment and practice these things?
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably, it's a simple concept, but it's not easy to put into practice. And that's why it's called a practice. So yes, what I would recommend and what I do recommend with my clients is in order to get into the present moment, it's about using all of our senses, or as many senses as possible, because we can't smell something and we could think about the future, but all of our senses bring us to the present, whether it's listening to the birds chirping outside, or smelling your cup of coffee, or just taking a moment to feel the air on your skin or the sun shining on your face. It just automatically brings you into the present moment. So I encourage my clients to get comfortable with the senses that they have and start actually using them and deepening that experience, because that just naturally zaps you into the present moment.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
So I want to ask anybody that's watching, or people that are here on Zoom, anybody on Facebook, tell me how do you use your senses to bring you to the present moment? I would love for you to drop that in the chat box or leave us a comment on Facebook if you can. But tell me, I love this idea of using your senses to bring you into the present moment. So what's your favorite sense to use to help you with this? I would love to hear from anybody on here. So drop that in there. Christiana and I will talk about that, because I'm very curious how people use this in their life. I know for myself, I loved especially the fresh coffee. I'm a coffee girl. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. We have, coffee houses on every corner. It was like 15 of my jobs. But fresh coffee for me in the morning, when I smell my coffee, that sense is, okay, time to go. That it really does, because I have a set structure in my morning. So when I smell coffee, that is something that brings me to the moment of, all right, your morning gets to start. There's joy in the smell of coffee. It's the funniest thing, but it really does do that for me. I know too, especially right now with all of us, I'm lighting candles a lot. Is anybody else lighting candles during this time? Just to bring my mind away from what I'm seeing on the news or whatever it is, to the moment of, this smells good. I mean, just the simplest things, right? Just to bring you in the moment. Those are some of my favorites. So I love you saying that, because I definitely do that. I definitely do that. Tell me about, Jody said, I use mindfulness. Yay, smell for sure, says Rachel. Which is your favorite smell, Rachel? I want to hear favorite smell. And Jody says, I use mindfulness meditation every morning to start the day. It awakens my senses and creates the opportunity to feel the air on my skin and notice my own breath. Wow, Jody, that's great. You just gave me goosebumps, actually. I love reading that.
That just brought me so much joy and warmth.
Exactly. Yeah, that those are being practiced. Those are being practiced. And Rachel says, smelling the fresh air when I run. Oh, yes.
Mhm.
Smelling candles and smelling cinnamon hot tea. Oh, I thought you were going to say Cinnabon at first. Shoot.
Ooh.
But cinnamon
Oh,
hot tea is good too.
that as
I
well.
love
That
it.
as well.
As
Yes.
well.
And Rachel, she brings up another point, and I talked about the senses. And a lot of the times, a lot of people think sitting and practicing mindfulness, you have to pause and sit in silence or just take a moment. And that is true. However, getting active, and a lot of the times, a lot of people say to me that when I'm running, that's when I'm meditating. When
Yes.
I'm walking, I'm able to do that. And it gets them out of, the wandering mind that we talk about and back into the present moment. So yeah, I think that
Absolutely.
that's great. And
Yep. Absolutely.
yeah,
Exercise is another one for me. I completely agree with that.
yeah.
Barry says, I am a teacher and I've been writing reports for the last week or so. So we are approaching the end of the term. As I'm writing, I have a candle on the side of the computer. Oh, how nice. That's
Great.
wonderful. Yeah, my boys just got the report cards, so I know you teachers are starting to round up this quarter. So that's wonderful. What a way to get yourself in the moment. And I wonder with you, Sari, with dealing with the chaos of being a teacher, I'm really curious about this, about being thrust into doing, this online virtual learning. Where is your mindfulness and self-compassion? What, like, scale of 1 to 10? I would love for all of you to tell us right now, 1 to 10, 1 being I'm really, really struggling, 10 being I'm a rock star. I should be a monk. You got it all figured out. I'd love to know how that's working for everyone. She has a succulent on the other side and calming music on. Ooh, you've got a good workspace. That's I have a great visual of that workspace. It's a great workspace. Love it. So let me ask you, Christiana, when it comes to obstacles, okay, the biggest obstacles that you see individuals run into when it comes to this practice, what are some of the big ones that you see, or even the small ones that maybe people don't understand are obstacles and they're getting in their way?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to mindfulness, it's this misconception that I somehow need to stop my thoughts. And if my thoughts are running, I'm not mindful and I'm not meditating. And that is it, it's such an opportunity. And I try to let my clients know that any opportunity that you have is an opportunity to strengthen that muscle in the mind, that muscle that brings you back into the present. So to welcome those thoughts and to not push them away, and to, even if it's uncomfortable thoughts and thoughts that may bring up certain emotions, it's to bring in whatever is happening with that openness and that gentleness. And a big obstacle that I am seeing with people having a challenge practicing self-compassion is they are able to help others practice compassion or show them compassion. When it comes to self-compassion, there's this critical voice that that could have been conditioned in their mind growing up, or just from their culture around them. And there's this there's shame that comes about, or if they do practice self-compassion, they're seen as weak, or it's just an unknown voice. They're just not familiar with it in general. Like, what does a self-compassionate voice actually sound like to them personally? And and so what I've noticed with my clients, whether they're coming to me to want to lose weight or have a healthier relationship with food, what they are really searching for, and what I dive deeper into with them, is having a healthier relationship with themselves.
Yes.
And it's just like, that's like where the aha moments come, and I just jump for joy, because it's not just having that healthy relationship or losing the weight or getting to a state of calm. It's how are you treating yourself, especially in these challenging times, and how are you going to overcome them? And so that's like where the shift happens. And
Wow.
I get chills when I talk
That's
about
exciting.
it.
Yeah. It's not just about eating chicken and broccoli. That's not what that is, right? It is the person at the core. And I love what you said about defining what your self-compassion voice says to you. It's not going to be the same for everyone, right? It's not the same voice. It's going to be speaking differently to each of us because we're all individual, right? So
Yes.
my self-compassionate voice might be different than yours, and same with that critical voice. Isn't that true? That each of our critical voices say different things to us. They do. It's funny. My background too was I was wellness coach, and a lot of times I would have my clients name their critical voice, put a face to this character, put a name to this character. So it was much more tangible and much easier to fight if it was a tangible character rather than this just nebulous critical voice.
Right.
And that's
I love
always
that.
very powerful. Mine's Penny. I'll always remember Penny because she's a penny for my thoughts. She takes my thoughts. And so
I love that.
that's my critical voice. That's her name. So kind of something interesting for people to think about your critical voice. I like naming them. So but yeah, I love hearing that. And especially the healthier the relationship with food. It's not just about the food, it's about the person. And how do you love yourself, or how are you not loving yourself? So this is great. This is great.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that. And what you are doing and what you've helped your clients do is detach from those thoughts, because if there are thoughts in our mind, it's so easy to say, well, yeah, that's me. That's who I am. Yep. That's what I believe. And then but by separating, you've identified that that's Penny.
Yes.
That's Penny. That's Penny's voice now. And our brain is very smart in that it recognizes when we're being fake with ourselves. Yeah. So that's where, like you said, it's finding what that personal self-compassionate voice, because if you say, you're okay, everything's going to be fine, this too shall pass, but those words don't resonate with you and you're like, no, that's not going to work for me. It does the reverse effect. So it's finding the terminology that you use. And I like to think about, how do I talk to my friends? How do my friends talk to me when I'm going through a challenging time? Or how did my grandmother talk to me? And what type of voice did they use? What was their tone of voice? And how, what were the words that they used that brought me comfort? And that just was like, oh, okay, I can do that.
Yes, absolutely. I love that, to use those actual people in our life and how they speak to us, and project that into ourselves and do it ourselves. I love that.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know. And so Piper, I am curious to hear, so with your work with executives and organizations, do you see a lot of mindfulness practice happening?
No. I think that it's becoming more prevalent in the sense of people want culture. We want a culture shift. We want a culture change. But no, the practice of mindfulness, especially with my busy executives, they say the same. They say to me, I don't have 30 minutes, Piper, to sit down and meditate. And again, bringing them to the present and saying, you can find a way to practice this within your day. You really can. But right now, especially right now with all the chaos and uncertainty, it's pretty much at a zero right now.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And so what are the biggest issues? What do you feel is
pre-COVID, I really think that when you say mindfulness, self-compassion, if I were to go into any of my C-suite executives or organizations and say, let's talk about self-compassion, they raise an eyebrow and go, wait a second, that's not what you're here for. And so I think the biggest thing is you have to speak the language for the individuals that you're working with, if that makes sense. But I think the biggest obstacle is this is a corporate environment. We don't do this here. We might do this at home. We might teach our children at home, but we don't do that here. And so I think it's breaking through that mindset of this is the culture. This is a corporate culture, So breaking down the walls, if it's always done this way, we don't talk about it this way, this is how we've always done things. Breaking down the walls of perfectionism, which is a huge one, especially with my female executives, of I cannot let people know that I'm practicing mindfulness and self-compassion, or that I'm asking for help with my self-compassion. I can't let them know that because I have to exude perfection. And the other thing is control. A lot of people, I think, they think mindfulness is, like you said, sitting in a quiet space for 30 minutes and breathing and this om, and they don't understand. And to them, that's not control. That is not, I've got to have my schedule, I'm getting everything done. And so I think those are the biggest issues when it comes to executives in corporate life. So for me, when I go in and I speak to them, we're talking about, are you fixed in your mindset? Are you in a growth mindset? Carol Dweck, everybody knows Carol Dweck and her work on the growth mindset. And so that's how I really go in to talking to these corporate cultures, but I can't start there. I can't start with them saying, let's work on your mindset. That is not how I work with executives. That I can't, because that's not what they're coming to me for. And so really what I have to do is flip that script, that corporate culture script, and break them free of the control, the perfectionism. We have to start from a foundation of, let's look at the culture. I have 6 steps that I bring into cultures to calm the culture. And
I love
really,
that.
yeah. And really the tip of the iceberg is we're going to get all these things figured out. We have to clear the mechanism, right? We have to clear that. What is that from? Friday Night Lights? Was that movie? Friday Night Lights, Clear the Mechanism? I think that was it.
I love that movie. Great movie.
It's such a great, right. But then once we get there and I give them that solid foundation, show them there is control founded in this, then to maintain these steps, that's when we dig into the mindset, the compassion, the mindfulness. That's how we get there.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I understand that the corporate speak, the corporate talk. I have a background in business and marketing, and I've gone in as similarly to you into corporate offices, and they're like, what's this woo-woo stuff? I don't understand
the woo-woo.
How the woo, and how does this apply to the bottom line? I'm trying to retain my talent. What is this doing? And to help and like you said, bring it back to their language. And it's I just thought of this, but it's about bringing your language to making that mindset shift for self-compassion versus talking about mindfulness in a corporate space. So, yeah.
And it's about tailoring it. I think all of us that are listening, all of us can practice this. And if you're helping individuals get there, you also have to tailor how you're speaking to each individual, just like we all practice self-compassion in a different way. But if you want to get through to anyone, especially right now when our fear and anxiety is heightened, you have to tailor it to them so that they hear. So with my 6 steps with the calming the corporate culture, like you said, I mean, we have to tailor it different ways. The first thing we do is I really talk about people are people. And this is a big thing. I actually was listening to a podcast today and I loved what they were discussing, that the woman that was on was the CFO. And she said, listen, we are in just chaos. We've had to really shift our mindset, but our number one priority is how do we care for our employees? That we have to care for them. We have to establish that they have families to take care of, so in this time, when I go into organizations, we do 360s, we do all of that. But the biggest step is people are people. They're not just assets. You've got to give them opportunities for self-improvement. You've got to think of them as, and all of us, I think all of us could raise our hand and say, we know how it feels to be just treated as an asset that can just be thrown away. We've been there, and it's painful. And you're not going to get the innovation and creativity out of your employees if that's how you treat them, right?
Right.
The second step is creating a supportive atmosphere, minimize the drama, promote a united focus, which again, what I love bringing back to what you've been talking about is that interconnectedness. And I think COVID is terrible and it's tragic and it's awful. And I hate the pain that is creating around our world. However, I am seeing a united focus, which gives me hope. It really does. The third part of creating a calming culture, corporate culture, is an atmosphere of acceptance. And what I love of that is your quirks are celebrated, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times you
Yeah.
go in and I hear them say, no, this is how we've always done it. Okay. This is the way we've always done it, is really taking away from those individuals that are going to make your organization thrive. So creating that atmosphere of acceptance is so key. And then practicing openness. You've got to share information, especially now with this mindfulness and this self-compassion. You cannot expect your employees to be the best for you if, one, you're not sharing information, you're doing this hoarding of information. There's a lot of organizations that do that. And you also can't expect them to be, so mindful and they're just on when they've got all this stuff going on over here with home, and yet you're hiding things from them. Practice openness, practice vulnerability, especially now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then encouraging questioning and focusing, staying in the present. That's when it all comes together.
Yeah.
There's some big ones. Yeah, those are some big ones.
I think that's great. And what I'm noticing, and it seems that that's starting to organically start to happen with this shift, because people are now communicating through their living rooms, or through, and the kids are in the background, or your spouse is cooking a lunch behind you while you're having a conference call, or having to adapt. And I think that there's this shared understanding that we are in this together, and we have to see that we're all human, we are people, and let's treat each other like people that all are going through this together. And it's been really interesting to watch that shift. It seems like it's almost organically starting to happen, not everywhere, but I'm starting to see it here and there.
Yeah. And it's encouraging. Like I said, it's that hope, I have hope for a lot of the organizations. I'm seeing that shift as well. I'm seeing that shift of, hey, I'm now seeing my coworker. I had them in this box. They had this identity, and now I just saw them unshaven and unbathed in their living room. It's true. It's bringing the humanness back into our lives rather than us living by personas. And isn't that kind of mindfulness and self-compassion is part of that being the humanness, but being accepting and showing that? Is that part of it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. It is acceptance.
Yeah.
Without acceptance, we can't allow ourselves to show ourselves self-compassion, and self-compassion is critical and so important for us to show compassion to others.
Yes.
And so it's this loop, this continuous loop. And mindfulness is accepting. It's accepting what is. It's not being complacent by any means. And I think that
that's a big
that the two concepts together, and especially with organizations, and even especially with women in the workplace too, there's this, I don't want to be complacent, because if I'm too complacent, I am not going to excel. And acceptance is not complacency. It's actually, okay, this is where I'm at now. This is where that person is at. How can I grow? How can I learn from this experience and shape myself so that I can thrive? It's like this upward arrow.
Yes.
Up.
Yeah. Especially with the acceptance, I like you using that word acceptance. Does acceptance to you mean that you are adopting that acceptance as your own? When you say the word acceptance, because I do think that's part of self-compassion, but if we're trying to practice self-compassion for ourselves, how do we do this with individuals right now that might be pushing our buttons? And that acceptance word, how do we do that? How do we practice compassion with them?
Yeah, that is a good question. And it's a big question that a lot of people are asking.
Yeah.
Because there is this new situation where you're around your family 24/7, or you're having to adapt to communicating with people in a different way. And it's natural for us to go through some bumps. So I think the acceptance and what you said in adopting this, the way it is, it's this deep understanding that we are all human, and humans are not made to be perfect. Yeah. I don't know where it stemmed from. I have not done a lot of research on perfectionism. I feel like have a lot more understanding and expertise in overcoming perfectionism. But I don't know where that came from, this misconception that we all are somehow perfect and we all are going to wake up and know how to deal with this change that's happening. And then we're all going to operate and be good, kind human beings to one another. And it's in our innate culture to operate in that way. But if fear is taking over, then it's natural for us to not operate in that sense of calm and peace and clarity, and we'll get on someone's nerves. So it's showing that person the same compassion that you would show yourself. And I think of it as, okay, if that person is pushing my buttons, I'm sure I'm pushing their buttons in some way.
Right. Right.
And so if I don't want them to get frustrated with me, how can I shift and think about them the way I want them to think about me?
Yes.
Yeah. So
in somebody else's shoes. That's a great way to shift that focus. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I've loved this. I cannot believe we've already been talking for 40 minutes. It's crazy. So I know you put together a self-meditation for all of us, right?
I did.
I would love if you would be willing to help us. I will be the first to admit right now that my meditation takes place with loud music and lots of heavy weights. That's my meditative practice. My husband teases me. He's like, it sounds like you're killing someone down there, but that's my meditation. So guided self-meditation, I'm probably one of those people that you would go, Piper, this is not, you've got this. So I want to take part in this, but I'm just warning you ahead of time. There's no weights involved. There's not loud music screaming in my ears. So let's go. Is everybody else ready for this?
Thank you for mentioning that, Piper, because I think that it's recognizing, okay, this is where I'm at. This is not what I would typically call meditating or a mindfulness. And it's, what's great though, is that you have done it. Yes. And you've just done it with a different environment.
Right.
A different environment. And so I am curious. So I saw we had one person saying that they do mindfulness meditation. Has everyone here, I just love to show, you can put it in the chat box if you have meditated before in the past, whether it was sitting for a 5-minute guided meditation or you were running and you felt like you were completely immersed in mindfulness and all of your senses, you were tuned in. Has everyone experienced that? And if you haven't, that's okay. That's completely fine.
Great for us to know, to learn.
Yeah.
And we will drop all kinds of contact information to y'all for Christiana. So if you have additional questions after this time together, that we'll make sure that you can get a hold of her. Yes, usually when I'm running. So Rachel and I think we're kindred spirits. We need to sweat when we meditate.
Yes, I get that. I get it.
Being in the zone is a mindful place to be. Yes, Jody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, great. So we've all done it to some various degrees and components. And the meditation that I have, and I'm so delighted to walk everyone through this one together. We're doing it together.
Yes, we're going to do this.
It's a self-compassion meditation. So there's more of a guide with it, and there's a visualization that comes about. And I can't take credit for this. This is something that Kristen Neff has put together. And I also, if you guys stick around till the end, part of the amazing guide that Piper was talking about, I have her resources in there as well. She has a whole site dedicated to self-compassion, and she has created a mindfulness meditation where it's utilizing the 3 components that we talked about: mindfulness, kindness, and interconnection, and bringing it all together into a 5-minute reset. She calls it the self-compassion reset. So we're not going to be sitting here for hours, and you don't have to close your eyes if you don't want to. I strongly encourage you to close your eyes, because that's where you can really let go of where we are now and really hone into the meditation. So it's going to be around 5 minutes.
Perfect.
And I will guide everyone through. And I love this one because it's giving you a focus. We're not going to sit in silence.
That's good.
No, so that's what we're going to do. So you don't have to worry about, oh, where's the loud music? I need loud music now.
Oh, I love it. Well, let's do this. I'm excited. I'm excited. We can do this.
Me too. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I encourage everyone to, if you aren't already, just in a comfortable position and in a place in your house or home, wherever you are, where you won't be disturbed, and that you feel comfortable closing your eyes, but know that you don't have to. If you don't want to close your eyes, you can just have a soft gaze downward, whatever feels comfortable for you. So just find a comfortable spot. You can either cross your legs. I like crossing my legs. I'm going to cross them. Or you can place your feet on the floor, whatever feels most comfortable for you. And to find a posture where you are sitting upright. So we're not going to lie down for this one, but a place where you can, or a posture where you can sit upright and be relaxed and alert at the same time. And just rest your hands on your lap. And when you are ready, just take a nice deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And on the exhale, gently close your eyes. And take some nice deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth as you settle into the space around you. And with each inhale and exhale, you can feel your shoulders just drawing away from your neck. And you can bring your breath back to its natural breathing rhythm. And start to notice your breath as you're breathing in and out through your nose. Noticing the coolness of the air on the inhale and the warmth of the air on the exhale. Imagine stress in your body and tension just melting away with each breath. And we're going to do a visualization meditation. If any challenging emotions do arise and you feel it's too difficult, simply bring your awareness back to your breath, flowing lightly in and out through your nose. And in the next few breaths, I invite you to call to mind a moment of a little suffering. Think about a situation in your life right now that is difficult for you. Maybe you're feeling stress. Are you going through a relationship issue? Or you're worried about something that might happen? Whatever it is, I invite you to think of something that is difficult, but not too overwhelmingly difficult. Something that's mild to moderately difficult. And find the situation in your mind's eye and get in touch with it. What's going on? Or what happened? Or what might happen? Really bring the situation to life. And once you're focusing on that, I'm going to take you through a series of phrases that are designed to help remember the 3 components of self-compassion when we need it the most. The first phrase is, "This is a moment of suffering." We're bringing mindful awareness to the fact that suffering is present. And as we talked about earlier, I invite you to find some language that speaks to you. It could be something like, "This is really hard right now," or "I'm really struggling." Whatever feels natural to you. And the second phrase, suffering is a part of life. We're reminding ourselves of our common humanity, that interconnection that we were talking about. So find some words that speak to you. It's not normal to feel this way. Many people are going through similar situations. The degree or flavoring may be different, but suffering is a part of life and of being human. And then the third phrase, may I be kind to myself in this moment, to support bringing kindness to yourself. I invite you to put your hands somewhere on your body where you feel comforted. It could be on your heart. I like to put my hands on my cheeks or my neck. You can give yourself a hug. Simply feeling the warmth of your hands and that gentle touch does powerful things for you in this moment. Let those feelings of care just stream through your fingers and mentally say to yourself, may I be kind to myself. Or you can use any language that supports that sense of kindness. You can think of how you would speak to your friend or a loved one that you care about who's going through a similar situation. It may be something like, I'm here for you. It's going to be okay. Or I care about you. You can even try using a word that you would usually use with someone that you love and care about. Like, oh, darling, I'm so sorry. Anything that feels natural to express your deep wish that you be well and happy and free from suffering. Take a moment to understand that tone of voice. Is that voice soft, warm, kind, and gentle? And for a moment, let go of this practice, still with your eyes closed, but noticing how your body feels right now. And allowing any sensations to be just as they are. You may notice areas of comfort or discomfort. You may feel more at peace. Allow yourself to just be as you are in this moment. And recognize what it feels like to show yourself compassion. And when you're ready, start to become aware of your breath, breathing in and out through your nose. You may notice your hands on your lap or by your side. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Thank you guys for participating in that.
Wow. That was actually, that was really actually pretty awesome. I can do this.
Yeah.
The thing that got me was what I was visualizing was actually my best friend and I, and how she speaks to me, and using that voice, like you said, you know, where someone might touch you, or so I was visualizing some of her and I's conversations. And so that was, you know, it's so funny. She's right across the street, but I still can't hug her. So it's hard, you know, so that was, it was so wonderful because it brought me that mindfulness, the gratefulness of that relationship, but also telling myself the same things that I might say to her, or knowing what she would say to me. Extremely powerful, extremely powerful. That was, wow.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Wow.
You're so
So
welcome.
everybody, we would love to open up the last few minutes for any questions that you may have for Christiana or myself. We would love to talk to you all, answer any of those questions. We'll leave it open right now. And make sure what I'll do is everybody jump onto your chat box. And right now I am posting a link to our PDF, but you also have the opportunity to head on over to our websites where you can download this beautiful workbook for you all. And this is going to help you practice, especially this mindfulness meditation. Christiana has put a beautiful page in our workbook to help us with this and to really work through those thoughts, and some great resources on there. So make sure you grab this. This is a free resource for everyone. So any questions that we can answer for anyone, we would love to do that for anybody that is with us right now.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear how that experience was for everyone as well. And Piper, I'm so glad that you brought up that feeling of gratitude and that joy. Rick Hansen has an incredible book on resilience, and he says that we have these 12 inner strengths. And the first one, it starts with compassion, but compassion that leads to gratitude and perseverance and, everything else. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, that's a big one. We spoke on resilience last week, toughness. So that's great. I love that you brought that in. Well, I'm not seeing any questions here right now, and it could be our connection. It could be the connection. But we are going to wrap up. I can't believe an hour is already gone. Thank you so much for joining us today, Christiana. Tell us where everybody can reach you, because it's so important that they can reach you. Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. And awesome. Thanks, Jody. You guys can reach me on my website. It's wellnesswithchristiana.com. That's also in the resource that Piper just provided for you guys. Yeah. And you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. It's Wellness with Christiana. And I would be more than happy to chat more about how to live mindfully and create habits where self-care is really non-negotiable. And you can do that at any time, any day, and it is whatever works for you. And I'm all about the whole person, taking a whole person approach. And so that's where you can reach me. And I would love to hear what resonated with everyone today as with our conversation, and just to hear, okay, what worked, what didn't, what are you going to take away with you for this next week?
Absolutely. And anybody can unmute themselves if you would like to, rather than utilize the chat box. You can unmute yourself. I've given everybody speaking permissions on here, so feel free.
Awesome.
Let's see. I am so relaxed after that.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, and you can do that at any time.
Yeah, that's I did hypnotism in college.
Oh, wow.
And I have testing anxiety. And so I went to a hypnotist for years, and it reminded me very much of what she used to have me do. And so that was, so that was great. It felt good. I thought, I need to try this laying down too. This will be good. And not fall asleep will be the key, because I do love to nap.
Naps are great. Naps are wonderful.
Well, there we go. Rachel. See what she says there.
Love the senses and breaking barriers in corporate culture. Both will stick with me. Awesome. Yeah.
Thanks, Rachel. That's great. I'm so glad. So glad.
Yeah. It is starting to become more a part of the corporate offices, and especially in schools now. It is starting to become a little bit more common knowledge, but like you said, it's around the culture. They're focusing on how do we create this culture.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you. And, I wanted to ask before we close out, Christiana, is what kind of client comes to you so that they know, because you do deal with the whole person. So what would you say is your expertise? So people know, hey, this is what she's going to do for me as a coach.
Yeah, that's a great question. the people that I work with and that I can help the most are those who consider themselves high achievers. They are running, the midnight oil, and they don't know how to create boundaries to live a life of self-care. So they are putting their work before themselves, and they want to create new habits in which they are focusing on how can I love myself and create habits that will support space, support mindfulness, support self-compassion, so that they can show up in their life and for the people around them with more presence and clarity and focus and confidence, so that they're not getting to the other spectrum of burnout.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you, everyone. We hope that this has given you some hope in the midst of COVID. Again, this is something that Poema, we are offering. It's a Caring Through COVID series, Lunch and Learn series. I am sure we're going to have Christiana back because this has been fun.
I love this.
I know, this has been great. So please make sure to head over to her website at wellnesswithchristiana.com. You can also go to my website, piperharris.net.
Oh no. Are we still there? I don't know if everyone can hear me and Piper. Well, if you can still hear, I hope I'm not chatting over Piper.
If any